Tat Sat. Welcome to Gyan Bhakti. We are currently exploring the scripture Mysticism of Srimad Bhagavatam. Commentaries by my worshipful Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayananda Ji Maharaj, narrated by myself, Swami Nikhilanand. So let's get started. We are currently studying the episode of Rukmi and the wedding ceremonies of Aniruddha, Pradyumna, etc. So today we will cover the slaying of Rukmi, in which Balarama slayed him. The slaying of Rukmi by Balarama during the fraudulent dice game is symbolic of the destruction of gross ego as spiritual movement advances. As the will within an aspirant continues to strengthen, there comes a stage where gross ego is destroyed. Balarama represents that inner purified will that proceeds from God. Normally, the ego plays a game of dice. All things in life are achieved by a divine power beyond the ego. But the ego fraudulently asserts, I won, and takes the credit. When this happens, the inner power within us suffers until there comes a stage when it cannot suffer any longer. It looks at the gross ego with indignation, and that ego is smashed, and all the elements that are associated with the ego are scattered. So let's move to the episode. The humbling of Banasur. Aniruddha marries Usha. Banasur was a mighty demon who was the great grandson of Prahlad. Prahlad, was a demon but a very spiritual aspirant who had attained Lord Vishnu's vision. He had 1,000 arms, this Banasur, this demon, and possessed immense strength and many powers. Although he was a demon, Banasur was a great devotee of Shiva. Pleased with Banasura's practice of intense austerity, Shiva told him to ask for a boon. Banasur requested that Shiva always protect him and his city from any attack, and Shiva readily agreed. As time passed, Banasur became exceedingly egotistical. One day, he bowed before Lord Shiva and said, O Lord, you are the fulfiller of the desires of your devotees. Because I have been endowed with such immense strength, I have not been able to find anyone who could be my equal in a good fight. Give me someone with whom I can fight and display my strength. Hearing this foolish arrogance, Lord Shiva was annoyed. All right, he said, I will grant your wish. Someday someone is going to fight you whose strength will be equal to mine, and then your pride will be humbled. Due to his dull-wittedness, Banasura was overjoyed and went home rejoicing, looking forward to this promised opportunity to exhibit his might. Banasur had an unmarried daughter named Usha. One night, Usha had a dream in which she saw a wonderfully handsome young man. After that, her mind was completely consumed by the desire to find that amazing young man and marry him. Usha expressed her desire to her companion Chitralekha, who was a great artist in addition to being endowed with yogic powers. In response, her friend Chitralekha presented before the princess drawings of all the handsome young men in the kingdom. The moment Usha saw the sketch of Aniruddha, the grandson of Krishna, she exclaimed, That's the one. Chitralekha then used her powers to quickly bring Aniruddha to Usha. Months passed and the two lived happily together, completely immersed in the joy of each other's presence, secretly hidden away in the maiden's quarters. When Banasura found out about the secret liaison, he became exceedingly angry and went to Usha's quarters with a group of soldiers ready to fight. When they entered, Aniruddha fought the soldiers and inflicted so much damage that the men fled. Angrily, Banasura had Aniruddha bound and imprisoned. As months had passed and no one in his family had seen Aniruddha, Krishna found out where his grandson was and came to fight Banasur with a vast army. After they laid siege to his city, Banasura launched a fierce counterattack with an equally large army. At that point, Lord Shiva joined in the battle against Krishna and his forces because he had promised Banasura that he would protect him. The fight was intense in all directions, and Shiva, also known as Maheshwara, sent to a mighty three-headed fever called the Maheshwari Jwara to assist in attaining victory. In response, Krishna generated a counter fever to overcome that of Shiva. Ultimately, the forces of Krishna, the incarnation of Vishnu, were triumphing, and Krishna was in the process of vigorously cutting off the myriad arms of Banasura. Seeing this, Shiva intervened because of his promise to Banasura. Krishna assured Shiva that he had no intention of killing Banasura but would leave him with only 4 arms so that his power could become limited. However, in honor of the demon's special relationship to Shiva, Krishna gave his promise that Banasura would have nothing to fear from anybody in the future. Gratefully, Banasura made prostrations before Krishna and then had Aniruddha and his bride Usha brought to Krishna in a regal chariot. All then returned to Dwarka, where Krishna's victory in the combat with Shiva was celebrated with great festivity. So, the mystical meaning, the union of Aniruddha and Usha. Banasur represents the impure mind with its thousands of distractions. Banasur's daughter, Usha, the goddess of dawn, represents the desire for intuitional knowledge, which arises in the midst of mental distraction. As distractions are destroyed and the mind becomes purified, the mind becomes filled with that light of knowledge. Usha is thus wedded to the pure mind represented by Aniruddha, the grandson of Krishna. Chitralekha represents the imaginative aspect of the mind. In the process of meditation, one imagines what knowledge of God would be. Imagination or bhavana goes on presenting its pictures, but at some point a higher level of purity is attained and the imaginative aspect is no longer needed. One is actually glimpsing the reality, the beauty of the dawn of knowledge. The battle between Shiva and Vishnu, in this case Krishna. There are 2 stages in the process of spiritual evolution. In the first stage, we are driven by the laws of the universe, evolving blindly, slowly, sluggishly. So, as we pursue desires due to ignorance and create karmas, we are born again and again and experience situations and circumstances according to that karmic fructification. This stage of evolution is symbolized by Lord Shiva granting to us whatever we desire, positive or negative. God, in the aspect of Shiva, is the granter of every wish that we have in our heart through an undiscriminating process. We have continued wishing from life to life, and whatever desire we have maintained in our mind through mental concentration, Shiva has granted. The universal law is that where there is mental concentration, there will be power. It doesn't matter whether the concentration is for positive or for the negative. And we see that in this world also. The tools can be used, created for negative or for positive purposes. All the demoniac personalities have their power because they worked for it. The same universal principle is helping them also. Just like an atom was made into an atom bomb and it was used for massive destruction. So we can use it for constructive or destructive purposes. The sun allows whatever seeds you sow in your garden to sprout and grow. If the seed happens to be the seeds of a poisonous tree, then a poisonous tree will grow. The sun allows everything and does not discriminate. Shiva plays a similar role. He allows everything that you strive to attain with intense mental concentration. So let us choose wisely, let us focus carefully, and focus on auspicious and good things. With this, we conclude our satsang for today. I will see you tomorrow. This is Swami Nikhilananda. Om Tat Sat.